In some ways, product-led growth is hard because you're letting the customers experience the product, experience the value that the product gives. But the product that we're putting forth isn't exactly where we want it to be in the end. So that's one interesting little wrinkle to our move towards product-led growth. My name is Furukawa, and today I want to share with you the framework that I'm going through to launch my new app called Prehook. I'll get into that later, but I'm really scared about it. A little bit nervous. I am not a product-led growth expert. So today I want to share with you the step-by-step rationale and strategy that me and my team are going through and how we arrived at product-led growth and why we think that makes sense. A little bit about exactly what we are launching. So it is called Prehook, prehook.com, and it's interactive quizzes for Shopify merchants. But basically for e-commerce brands, or an e-commerce site, say you're looking for moisturizers, you go to a site, fill out a couple questions, quick questions. These are interactive and engaging questions. The goal ultimately is to help merchants increase their conversion rate. And we are hoping to arrive at this by understanding what the shoppers are looking for. What goals, problems, objectives do they have, and what product meets their goals. So this is one take on what the Shopify ecosystem looks like, done by e-commerce tech. And so you can see that there are 8 different verticals or main areas where apps might help a merchant. And I think that what makes most sense is that we probably fall into the pop-up or list growth area. So the Shopify app ecosystem is competitive, but it is the e-commerce industry or market as a whole is growing incredibly quickly. As you know, in 2020, people forced to sell online, people forced to buy online. So right now there are about 5,500 apps on the Shopify store, and about 10 of which are our direct competitors, we'll say, people that are building quiz apps. We are going to market with something where it's going to be a bare bones product in terms of basically just sharing some questions. Those will integrate with their e-commerce platform, their CRM, and then capture the email. So that's going to be the very first iteration, and that's what we're going to market with. So in some ways, product-led growth is hard because you're letting the customers experience the product, experience the value that the product gives. But the product that we're putting forth isn't exactly where we want it to be in the end. So that's one interesting little wrinkle to our move towards product-led growth. So when we started thinking about this, and I'm working with 2 developers, my 2 co-founders are both developers. Okay, is this something that's viable? We started obviously doing some outreach, some conversations with merchants. It did not do pre-sales to generate revenue before actually launching the product. That might be a mistake, but we didn't do that. But we were having conversations. So this was basically to identify what's most important to merchants. And resoundingly, it was the ability to drive more revenue, drive more conversion, so an increase in conversion rate, have that be attributable, and then therefore any money that comes in is easily justified in terms of return on investment. So we did get validation, if you can call it that, by people saying, I would be willing to pay that. They did not pay that. And like $100 or so was, for example, one person based on what their current revenue it was and what the incremental improvement from a quiz could be. So this was really just to show, okay, what should we be building for? What should we be prioritizing in terms of our value proposition in the messaging and the copywriting, but then also in the product itself. Looking at the pricing plans, for example, some of them would do completely freemium, which means that you could every month you'd be allocated 5,000 quiz engagements. You wouldn't have to pay anything over that. Then you bump up to the basic plan, and that's this top one here, for example, at $39 a month. Then what's interesting is kind of like a wrinkle to freemium is that there's limited uses. So this is product led in terms of you get to use a product full featured for a certain number of engagements. But once you hit that limit, then you can no longer use the product at all until you start paying. This is interesting. However, we're trying to get users. We're trying to get people to use a product, give us feedback, and then down the line, hopefully monetize that. So we'll get into that later, but the reason why we didn't find that this was a good model for what we were looking for is because once people hit their limit, which if they actually publish a quiz would ideally be an inevitable case, then we would no longer be able to try to convert them because they would no longer be getting value from the product. The product would be paused until they started paying. And so we thought that this limited use case of freemium would ultimately undermine our future potential for revenue. And then there's the product-led pricing strategy in terms of a free trial, a time-limited free trial, 14-day free trial. And we are not going with this because we're finding that, or we think, hypothesis, that there's going to be a little bit of an onboarding phase in terms of you sign up, what are the quiz questions that you need? You have to put the quiz together, you have to implement it, you have to design it, you have to drive traffic to it before you can actually derive value from it. So there are these many steps where it would be incumbent on us to get the merchant to reach that moment of value within the 14 days. And again, at the very early stages, we're trying to get users to actually use the app, give us feedback, and then hopefully give us a review. So it looks something like this, where our priorities are ultimately to get users, whether that is free users or paid users. Obviously, paid users are better, especially as it is a validation of the value that we're delivering. But we want people to actually just use the app when we start. And from that, the goal is to stay very close to them in terms of receiving feedback and iterating based on that feedback. How can we improve the marketing, the copywriting, the messaging? And then how can that feed into the product itself? How can the feedback that we're getting actually help us to get a foothold in the market by offering greater value? And then the third priority is reviews and revenue. And so it really does become a flywheel of sorts that we get users, the users give us feedback, we're able to help deliver value to them. And then in return, maybe ideally we get 5-star reviews, we get more 5-star reviews, we bump up in the organic rankings, and we're ultimately starting to reach positive revenue. Now I just want to share a few of the challenges that we have been considering as we're going through this product-led growth. So the first is, what is the perceived value? I think we've all used apps that do take a product-led strategy, and so you get it for free. And what happens with the free stuff? You know, it might be like this pile of toys. For example, my 4-year-old daughter, we just went through Christmas. She has a pile of toys. Some are already, collecting dust since December 26th. And we do not want to fall into that pile of unused goods. And we think maybe the biggest challenge might be if you don't pay for it, you don't value it. Users will always value something that they have a stake in, that they've put money towards. And if we are free, then it's easy to fall in the pile of tools that are free. It'd be nice, but it's kind of a pain to get installed, or it's not that helpful. And so that's maybe one challenge that we're facing with product-led growth. The other is, how quick are they to actually make it work? If you're paying for something, you want to learn it, you want to optimize it, and you want to drive traffic to it to get the most value out of it. I mean, I think that the quiz offers tremendous value hypothetically. Increase your conversion rate, learn more about the people that are on your site, extract those insights, and then create tailored, relevant marketing campaigns down the line. I mean, that all is well and good, but what if the merchants, the users, don't actually have the patience to get to that point? So will they be quicker to churn if they don't have a monetary investment? So this is something that's very much at the forefront of our mind as we are considering our pricing and product-led growth strategy. The other thing is, are we going to undermine our revenue potential with a product-led strategy? How long will we defer revenue if we're not actually forcing users to get revenue, to pay to use a product? Here's how some of the product-led strategy might play out. So this is a screenshot from the app. It's in our staging environment. But one thing is that we're going to build out an extensive template library where we're trying to think of every single use case, every single niche industry, and create a well-designed, a beautiful pre-made template that makes it super easy for customers to almost plug and play. And the goal here is to make it easy to onboard so that they don't have to think. So we've created the quiz questions for them, and then all of a sudden it's an easy path for them to sign up, choose their quiz questions, make some tweaks to the design, and then publish to their site. And in terms of publishing, that is also one way that we hope to make it easier to accelerate the path from registration to AHA. And that means removing the barriers to entry. One of the things that's important, and that a lot of the competitive products do, whether it's a quiz app on Shopify or others, is to have a no-code implementation or no technical expertise required. So we want to remove the challenge of technology and encourage usage quickly. That's something that we have been working on in terms of just making it super easy to basically grab your quiz code snippet and then publish it. Freemium is an acquisition model, not a revenue model. So this is just a real reminder for us that it's a way for us to get users in the door, but we cannot rely on getting a ton of users and then just giving it away for free. That there comes a point where we can no longer provide, where product-led growth has its limitations in terms of how much a user can use a product, to what extent, like whether it's features or number of users, number of quizzes that can be taken. But ultimately, what's really important from this note is that it's just an acquisition strategy. We cannot rely on freemium, giving the product away in terms as a revenue strategy. So the main goal and the main benefit of product-led growth is that we're able to get the product in users' hands and then get feedback from there. I think that's our main priority at this early stage of pre-launch and soon after our launch when we're in beta. So what we're thinking about is how can we learn more from customers and deliver more value quicker. And I think that product-led growth might remove some of the barriers to entry, might make it more amenable for merchants to say, hey, I'll give that a try. And then from there, we're able to get real insights that we're not able to do without a product. So anyway, that is the presentation for today. I really appreciate you staying till the end, for taking the time to watch this. Bye.